Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before we get into this episode, I want to take a moment to speak about Her Inspirations, the sister podcast to Her Conversations. Each episode of Her Inspirations is an exploration of things we encounter when we embark on our spiritual and awakening journeys. Recently, I've expanded on the format to include an accompanying weekly email that includes additional notes for meditation, journaling, and inspirations. Also links to relevant resources and exclusives. So if you are someone who is actively seeking growth, listen in on Her Inspirations and also use the link in the show notes to join the Her Inspirations mailing list. When you do, you'll also receive the free Embody Her, Embody Higher Energetic Resonance course. My guest this week is Kim Mallory, author of The Journal to Your Awakening. She's certified in holistic wellness, vibrational healing and spiritual counselling. Her primary dedication is to assist individuals in achieving optimal health and wellness with the ultimate goal of a balanced and fulfilling life. This pursuit involves addressing various dimensions of health, physical, mental, emotional and spiritual in an integrated and holistic manner. After overcoming the challenges of a critical illness and a bone marrow transplant, she has embraced her calling to help others on their healing journeys. During our conversation, Kim shares how illness was a catalyst for her transformation and the birth of her creative expression. She also talks about the power of the women's circles that she facilitates. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
I feel it when I am in ritual, where I can be present, totally be in the moment. I also feel it through meditation, sound healing, and circle. Mostly meditation though. The connection through meditation, I find, is the most valuable way to connect with that higher energetic resonance.
Thank you. And before we go deeper into our conversation, Kim, I just want to give you the opportunity to share, because what is clear to me and anyone who listens to this podcast is that our guests always have some sort of pivotal experiences that then actually shift them into doing the work that you may consider, your purpose, your passion, and all of these things. How does that story play out for you?
Well, in 2020, just before COVID hit, I experienced a critical illness. I was diagnosed with what's called aplastic anemia. And the backstory of that is, I was kind of running through life and I had, been raising teenagers. I was working, late hours as a realtor, and I probably wasn't managing my stress very well. I always had that pit in my stomach. And one day I looked down and I saw all these bruises on my legs and red spots, and I thought, that's probably not good. So, a couple days of putting it on the back burner, I finally decided, hey, I better go to the lab and get a blood test. And I was in a listing appointment with a client, got a phone call, and the phone call was, you need to go to emergency right now.
Mm.
So I was just in a, like my mind, everything was just reeling. My mind was reeling. I was just at a loss for what could this even be? Like, what am I dealing with here? And I ended up in an ambulance, headed down to Vancouver on the 15th floor of the leukemia bone marrow transplant unit. That was where, for me, I started my journey. And it was a journey of hope. It was a journey of sorrow, fears, all of the emotions that you could possibly think of, after your life is just ripped out from under you. You're just having no other option but to process and get through it. That's where, for me, I started meditating when I was in the hospital. And I did a lot of meditating. And it brought me to where I am today, which is definitely in a better place.
What were the first shifts that you noticed when you were kind of on the road to creating what you've created and the work that you do now? Was it like during your recovery? Was it after your recovery? What was happening there that you were starting to see, actually, I'm really changed as a result of all of this? And then not only seeing the change in yourself, then thinking, actually, I've got something here. I need to share my story. I need to share something. What were the processes of that?
It started fairly quickly. And I had been on Facebook, of course, and I've always been on Facebook. I have, businesses and friends and, so I have a following, and I would post what was happening. One particular evening, I posted for everybody to send me their energy at a specific time on a specific date. And I was going to meditate on that energy. And so at 7 p.m. one evening, I was lying in my hospital bed and I started this meditation. And it was the most mystical and magical experience that I've ever had. I felt like my body was floating off the bed. I felt like I could see that I was surrounded in a white light. And it was as though all the bad was just washing away and making room for something better. And this meditation lasted a full hour. And the tears were flowing like just a release. And, it was, to me, the realization that there truly is a higher energetic resonance and that it is powerful. And we don't often understand how powerful that energy is and how it can help us move through life and heal. So when that started, and I realized what was really out there, I took the steps to research and learn and do the things that could create that higher energy where I could connect. And of course, the goal is to connect to that higher power. And so how can we get to that point? If it's not through a meditation where you're calling in all of the energy, what other ways are there? Right? So that's always been my goal. And in learning all of these things, I just found that hey, if this is stuff that people don't necessarily know, that's there for them to help them get through their anxiety or their PTSD or the crises that may be occurring in our lives. There's a better way to deal with it, is what I found.
So, people could be listening to this and say, okay, I keep hearing people talking about connecting to their higher self and intuition and all things like this and this energy. And for somebody who's maybe never experienced that, or probably have, because everyone has, you just don't know, like, that was it. Like, what was it like for you when you were starting to notice that, oh, this is what it feels like when I'm plugged in? That's why I always like to ask that question at the beginning.
Yes.
Because it kind of gets you back into the what does it take for me to get there, and we can start from a you're in that space already. What does it feel like for you when you're tuned into that, and what do you do to kind of pull yourself in if you feel that you're falling out of it? And then also, if you had like a piece of advice for somebody who'd be like, well, I don't know, what can I do to get towards that? What do I know? How do I know I'm there? And how do I keep myself there? More importantly, I think sometimes initially it's always fleeting. What can you offer there?
Yeah, so to get there, I created rituals. And so at 2:00 every afternoon, I would put on binaural beats type music where it just gets right into your system. And I would play it quite loud. I would light a candle, turn on the salt lamp, burn some incense, and I would meditate, just be in the moment. The feelings that I get when I know I'm connected, typically I would feel like you're calm, your mind is clear of any mind chatter. So mindfulness is an important aspect in all of this. You're not going to be thinking about what you're going to be making for dinner when you're in ritual and you're meditating on healing or your journey, understanding that when you are connected, you know you're connected when you feel like you are supported and you feel like you are in a zone where nothing really can ruffle your feathers. You just have this all-knowing that everything's going to be okay, that you're on a journey and there are lessons here to be learned. What can I learn from what's happening to me right now? What can I do to get myself to a better place? And in having that belief in that spiritual essence, where we're talking about our spirit guides, our angels that are around us. Many times at night, I would just lay back and I would call in my angels for help, like healing. What do I need to know? And these messages would come in saying, you need to write. And I'd be like, okay, well, like, I can't really write. And the message would come back, you need to write the way you speak. And so with that connection, I started doing the things that I was hearing, and I found myself in this amazing, joyous, gratitude-filled life, even though I didn't know how my situation was going to turn out. I would literally feel so joyful that I would bounce out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and run to my computer and start writing. And I would write in solitude and peace and get it all out onto paper. I started painting. I couldn't even draw a stick man. And I have no idea where I got this idea to paint. I'm assuming it's, from that higher energetic resonance that we're always tapping into. But I would paint angels and I would put them around my apartment. I would give them to people that I considered my angels. And, it was just a really beautiful time where, even though I was struggling with this illness, I was able to get through it all through these rituals and the holistic teachings that I was learning, and the belief and the connection.
When you were just talking about how suddenly you had this creativity to paint and to write and all of these things, and prior to that you didn't have that, or you didn't, you said like you couldn't draw a stick man or anything like that. Because I'm one of the things I've always attested to and had no lack of faith about is the fact that for me creativity is linked to spirit, because and that's something that I was able to acknowledge at a really young age as a child when I was writing poems and songs and all of this kind of stuff, because it's like, where is this stuff coming from? Because it's not hearing it in another room. Like initially when I was learning how to play the piano, like we'd go to a shop and buy a book of sheet music, and then I'd go to my tutor who would teach me how to play. So initially it was like, oh, that's where music comes from, a shop with books with dots on lines, like that's initially where it came from, until I started to have ideas and I started to wake up with like thoughts and lines, or I'd overhear somebody say something and like there'd be like almost like a kind of turnaround in my head going, oh, that'd be a good line for a song. Or it was then being able to actually see creativity and the possibility of creation in absolutely everything, in the most mundane. And so for me, I just I'm always about creativity as a spiritual practice, and everybody has that creative I mean, we're creating on all levels anyway, but especially when it comes to arts and the healing power of art and music and that kind of expression, which can lean into other things, not just the obvious things of art and painting and singing and playing music, but also taking it further into like culinary arts, or like gardening or fashion designing, or even when people like move it into things like numbers, or being like, people always creating, they just don't realize how creative they're being. And even, when people are just kind of trying to be a little bit absent-minded, you just start doodling and allowing that free flow, that free form of your hand to just kind of go backwards and forwards and go round and round and just express that. All of this is spirit working through you, and yet we kind of clip things off and put them in boxes and call them different things. But I'm all about that creativity expression is spirit really working through you and allowing you to see that you can pull things from unseen realms and actually bring them through into this space, into this dimension, and then be able to share it with other people, which is one of the things that used to blow my mind when I broke it down. I never took it for granted. It was like, oh my God, I was just thinking that in my head, and then a while later it could be on a bit of paper. If I took it further, I could go into a studio and then be able to play it to people, and it was something that had been in my mind. I was like, that's the wildest thing ever. And just really being grateful that I had that connection and wanting everyone to really discover that about themselves. I'm all about expression and people kind of opening up that way, because it changes your life. I truly believe it changes your life. And, you know, like you say, it changed yours.
It does. And, you know, just to have that passion and the joy that it can bring you when you're in that creative space and you're painting or you're writing, you're not thinking of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also a form of mindfulness as well, which is really, really important. We should all be in that space because we all know what it's like when our mind just can't shut up and it's, you know, we're ruminating about the past, we're ruminating about the future, and we're not living our lives because we're worrying too much. You know, so just to be able to calm your nervous system through creativity. Also, the chakras are a really wonderful way to calm your nervous system. And I work a lot with the chakras as well. And just to get to that place where, you know, once your nervous system is calm, you're able to better balance your life and create, paint, garden, you know, enjoy nature, get out into the garden with bare feet, ground yourself. So many ways to find that inner peace.
So tell me about your book. How did that kind of roll out and how did you structure it and the story behind that?
So I wrote the journal to your awakening. So it is a journal, and it's almost like a starting point for how to reach that enlightenment, the awakening. You know, we call it an awakening because we've suddenly gone from, you know, worrying about the stresses of life just to being able to find that space where we are held, comforted, we know who we are. So it's based on what I went through and the things that I did to get to the point where you could have an awakening. These are kind of the tools that I would have used. So, you know, you really want to balance the negative and the positive. I'm not big on the toxic positivity, but there is a balance there where you do have to control your thoughts. And obviously you want to control them for the better. So stop that negative self-talk or whatever ruminating you're doing and turn everything into a positive. So that is part of the teachings. I also learned about radical forgiveness when I was ill, because, you know, if you are holding on to things, you're holding on to trauma, you're holding on to the past, how are you supposed to heal? Right. And forgiveness is one of the main obstacles that we need to overcome to get to a better place. Trusting your intuition, learning divination systems to kind of open the doors for you. So when I was sick, I would pull 3 cards every day, and they were always the same. It was uncanny, and I mean, I was pulling cards for a solid year, you know, and it would always tell me, you have a firm foundation, waiting game, everything's going to be okay. Like, so there was the piece that I would get out of my cards, like, oh, thank you. Okay, I can continue on this. I can continue. I can do this. I keep getting the signs, right? That everything's going to be okay. So I'm a huge believer in divination systems, creating an altar, praying. I'm not a religious person. I'm spiritual, but praying works. I understand why people do it now. Also, energy clearing. we could be holding on to negative energy ourselves. So how can we clear that energy? And a lot of times we're able to clear that. You have blockages in your body. You want to get rid of that. You can clear it through the chakra systems and doing some of the things that can clear those chakras. You could be, if it's your root chakra that's blocked, or your sacral chakra, solar plexus, all our earthly chakras, we need to work on the opening of those centers, just so we have that feeling that we're grounded, and we can move to get through what we're going through opening up those chakras. My favorite way to do that is through sound frequencies and music, and being conscious of it, that this is what we're doing, visualizing clearing these energy centers of the negative energy. And obviously, there's a lot of self-care involved when you are trying to heal. And there are many ways that you can, the biggest part of self-care that I discovered was the need to say no, and just not push yourself to do everything and be everything to everybody. That is sacred self-care, when you can say no and put yourself first. And then, of course, there are other things that we would do, a bubble bath, meditating. I found being in solitude was really good for my mental health. And I still crave it to this day, where I just need to be alone. And it allows you to just gather your thoughts and be in the moment, be present, Yeah.
Beautiful. And where you are sitting now, like with your life the way that it is, what would you pinpoint as like the greatest and most surprising aspect of your transformation? There's like is there something that you're doing? Is there a way that you are that you're like, I can't believe this is me? And it doesn't even have to be like a big external thing, like something that every now and again you kind of go, oh, is this Kim now? Is there something about you now that you could have never imagined?
I am the me that I've always wanted to be. So imagine going through life, and I've always been interested in divination, but I always hid it. I didn't want, I worried about, well, what will people think? And the greatest gift of what I endured and what I went through, I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think. And it was like a coming out. Here I am. This is really who I am in spirit, in mind, in body. I am like the embodiment of a spiritual person that I read tarot cards, and I have a pendulum, and I do all the things metaphysical. And it was just such a relief to be able to be who I wanted to be. And I think that was the greatest gift.
And it's, it's pretty much what everyone says, like saying that, to take away from your experience, but the realization is to get to that point where you're just like, I don't care what people think. And it's not about not caring, because people might hear it and go, oh, you're just going to run roughshod over people's feelings and all of that kind of stuff. It's just that you're no longer limited by people's judgment or people's expectation or people's misunderstanding of you. And it's almost, you know, if I kind of bring myself into that, it's like, I know that there's a big handful of people out there who haven't got a clue who I am, you know, and are still running on this old version, like Carol, like 2 point, God knows what version that was, you know, but it was like a 4 or 5 year ago version of me that people are still running a narrative on. And it's just like, that person just couldn't exist for very much longer. That was kind of, for me, I'd got to the point where I'm like, we're at a crossroads now, or a fork in the road, basically. There wasn't even like 3 options. There was like one or the other. It was like literally do or die. It's either you go the way of the do, or you please everyone and you die. It was clear as that.
Exactly.
And the staying with and pleasing everyone would have been a slow death. Already I could feel that it was just clipping parts of me, and stepping away and going into I still had to go through a period of death anyway. You know, it was like literally shedding all of the aspects of myself that people who wanted me to stay there recognized and kind of had identified me as and kept me in this box. So I had to walk away from everything that I had played along with that version, even though I'd been fighting it for pretty much all of my adult life, and then literally walk away into a limbo state, a state of like, okay, so what have I done? You know, and I knew what I had done, but I didn't even know what I was walking into. And it was never going to happen immediately. And it was a period of intense limbo and intense grief and loss and separation of myself, separation spiritually, on all different levels all different levels. Every level that we exist on, there was a ripping apart of that. And over time I'm able to add more language to it, you know, but it was like a very real experience for about 6 months of just like, where am I, what am I doing? And all I could really do to go through that period, because I lost pretty much everything. Like the only things I had were like the things like my stuff, and half of it was in storage. And just the idea of like, well, let me just try and keep this podcast going a little bit, you know. All I had were my ideas and these still little glimmers of something that I could do, and it was just like one foot in front of the other. And even then I couldn't do it all the time. It was literally just, we're moving through something here now. But as the shift for me came in that when I realized that the situation was what it was at that period of time. It's like I'm basically as low as I possibly could be right now. This is like ground zero for me. It literally is. I don't think it could get any worse. And then it was like, okay, instead of fighting the pain and the discomfort and the embarrassment of where I find myself, it was like, do you know what? Okay, this is where we are. This is where we are. It was an acceptance and a surrender of this is where we are. And in that moment, everything changed, as in, it wasn't like, you know, the world changed externally, but my perspective changed on it. It was like, okay, that was the point of turning that had to happen. I had to go, okay, this is where I am, and I need to now move forward and go forward with everything around this. And bit by bit, parts of me started to come together, but also it was like in my mind, I'm like, one day I will tell this story. And, you know, and one day further down the line, I might be able to laugh about it. You know what I mean? You know, there's because there were in the moments of the horror of it and the pain of it, there was some like really, really seriously funny things that happened that, you know, at the moment I've not told anyone about, because it was just like me going like, how the hell did I get here? How the hell did that happen? but they were some really, and also I've got kind of like slightly warped sense of humor, so maybe no one will find it funny. But there were points where I'm like, one day in the future, I don't know when I'll get to the point where I really can go, haha, and not kind of feel a little bit pinched about the whole thing. But there'll be moments where I can literally share, this was my rock bottom, this was my ground zero, but also a funny thing happened. A funny thing happened in the gutter that I want to tell you about as well. But then from that moment, I was then, well, I think I've lost everything, but I still have this glimmer of a dream. I still have things that I've created that I can kind of scoop up and start to put together again and move forward. And in and in kind of picking up as well, because I'd been on and off writing a book, and now I've really like picked it up again and like realized that the pause, when it kind of like went to, kind of went on the shelf for a bit and just didn't get written for a few years, that some really pivotal things happened in that period of time for me now to look and go, do you know what, now's the time to get that together, because that whole period of time needed that experience to then kind of cap it. And then where I'm at now is kind of like, okay, we're kind of pushing off again into a new space, and that will really cap off nicely that period of time and be able to just really catalogue a lot of things that went on. So all aspects of creativity are back on deck. So yeah.
I had the same experience with acceptance. As soon as I let go, I had the shift. Everything changed, for the better, obviously. And it's a really important step in the journey is acceptance. I remember when I had to have a bone marrow transplant, and when they give you your donor's bone marrow, they give it to you through your bloodstream, and the cells are going to go into your bloodstream and get into your marrow. And it takes a while. It took about probably 2 weeks before you knew if this was going to work or not. And I had come to the point where I had no fear. I had no fear of death. I was very grounded, very calm, but I'm lying in the hospital bed like day 14, and suddenly I just had this horrible thought, what if? And I'm like, my immediate reaction was to get up out of the bed and go reach for a book that was on my shelf. And I opened the page, and it was a page about letting go. And I'm like, okay, that's my sign. Let go. Everything's going to be okay. And yeah, it's amazing what can happen when you are accepting and you're able to let go. Just releases all that fear.
Right.
So just being able to have the tools to do that kind of thing, I think is really important in this day and age. And, my takeaway from all this is that I feel everybody needs to learn these tools. We can use these holistic tools rather than, the vices that we tend to turn to, a glass of wine at night, or, stress eating, all the things. I just found that these tools are just the natural way that have been given to us to be able to calm our systems. And it's so magical. There's so many great benefits to using this type of holistic things. So I would highly suggest to people to look at it and take part in circles or sound healings, and get to know more about how we can calm our nervous systems naturally, and not keep rushing to the doctor. You know, so I was in the hospital system for 3 full years.
Right.
And I saw a lot of, I had a lot of pain meds, and had to have Xanax and all the things. And, you know, thank God that's in my past, but I realize now there is a better way.
Can you just talk about the circles that you hold and what happens in a circle, how a circle works? I've been part of circles, but I've never really had anyone on here who talks about the process and what a circle entails, and sometimes what it doesn't entail as well, because I've been in good ones and I've been in ones where you're just like, okay, this is turning into something weird. And especially when I was out in Bali, I went to a lot of circles and also facilitated a couple of circles as well.
Yeah.
There's a level of skill to the person that's holding the circle to be able to manage that. So can you just speak about that a little bit more?
So for me, circle is about connection, because the energy, we are all connected through our energies. And fortunately, I am great at reading energy. So I have the people that are coming into my circles. We have that same kind of vibe going on, you know, and it flows really well. I'll create like an altar of some sort that we can all sit around, candles and things from nature, crystals, and we will start with a meditation, go around and talk about what somebody might need to release. And if they want to speak outwardly about it, that's great. You know, if they don't, then they can write it out, and we put it in a little bowl that we just burn. I also will incorporate a sound healing into it. And it's just it's almost like a workshop type learning, and just talking, connecting, just being able to step into your power, you know, through music and ceremony, release, and all the things. So they're really beautiful, and we usually have about 8 to 10 people in circle, typically indoors. Comfy pillows and blankets. It's like a big sleepover, but everybody leaves.
You know, one of the things I wanted to add to that as well, in my experience, the effectiveness of a circle, particularly for women who it's their first experience, you know, they don't know what they're walking into. They might be a little bit nervous about, you know, they're walking into something that's a bit too cray-cray and a bit too woo, you know, that kind of thing, because it can look that whole kind of thing. But in my experience, or when I've facilitated them, my intention is always to create, and you know, this is going to sound like a hashtag, but a safe space, basically, but a safe energetic space, more so than its physicality, a safe energetic space, so that women who are new to it, so they're going to have a level of, you know, they're going to feel anxious, nervous, and especially if they're not used to just talking about how they feel, you know, they might be they might not have the opportunity to do that at home, in their relationship, in their home, it may be in their friendship circle, and people that they've known for their entire lives, but there's an aspect of themselves that they want to open up to, or even if they don't necessarily share on that first on their first visit, to be able to then witness other women being vulnerable, but not feeling that it's a weakness, or not feeling that women are not heard or held in that space.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
And honestly, my biggest superpower, I feel, is being vulnerable, because it allows women to understand that there's no judgment. We all have a story. And I think it's important for women to tell their stories so that other women can, feel like, okay, hey, that happened to me. And this is how they dealt with it, and she's okay. I can be okay. I've been told that my house is very zen and calm and peaceful. And I feel like God is who I am as well. And I think people just kind of come in and feel the level of zen in the home and in the space, and they just want to be there, and they're comfortable. There's no energy better than the frequency that we can all be on together, where we're all in the same zone and all in the vibe. And I often have women that I always have a box of Kleenex out, because just a sound healing alone, just listening to the bowls, can cause people to have that release and tears and just probably they've been so stressed in their high energetic, stressy space, that just to be able to be calm and quiet for, an hour is just a huge relief.
Yeah.
So that's where I really enjoy teaching people how to find that for themselves.
And then when they leave, they, even if they walk back into the stress of where, where they can't, even if they walk back into their like similar stress situation, they've got the memory of that's possible. Because especially if you're in that high stress environment all the time, you can't hear yourself think, you can't speak about how you feel. Going and just experiencing that, and then going back to where you were, gives you then a contrast. Then you can see, oh, there is something else over there. And you may not become like, a Zen meditator overnight, but like in the back of your mind now,
it's in the back of your mind.
Yeah, you'll then want to kind of find a way to recreate that space for yourself, whether it means that you attend that circle again, or then you see, how can I find like a pocket of that peace in every day in my own home? And it's so possible for everyone. We don't need to create the whole. We don't need to have all the trinkets if we don't want to. Like it's totally possible to do it without. I've gone in and out of having the things and not having the things, and I'm currently at the stage where I don't have the things. I suppose my things are plants now. As long as I've got like enough plants around me, then it feels like I've got, then I'm creating that. So I can't say that I don't have an altar, because my altar are healthy plants around me, and I get a lot of calm from just making sure that they're in my space. And what I notice as well is when I'm in a good space, like energetically, the plants around me really thrive. Even ones where I've managed to kind of like massacre before really thrive at this point. So it's just finding like having that contrast, going there, experiencing that, tasting that possibility for yourself. And even if you go back into your mayhem, you've got like a little reminder of like something happened. What was that? And then you start
and you want to learn more. And you know, it is work to get there. It is work, and you have to really want it for yourself. But you know, if you want it for yourself and you can learn the lessons, that ripples through your family. You know, I've got a granddaughter now, and I mean, I didn't have any of these tools when my kids were young. And I've got a granddaughter now, and we do, she knows all about the chakras. She's 3.5. She does baby yoga. She'll come and pull out her mat and do yoga. I'm like, okay, Quinn, take your socks off and go get out in the dirt, run out in the garden. And that child is going to know how to ground herself. She's going to know how to self-regulate. She's learning all the lessons. You know, she told me the other day, Grandma, breathe in, breathe out. You know, 3.5, right? So it's something that these lessons are so valuable for humanity as a whole. I mean, why are there wars? Why is there, you know, the patriarchy and capitalism? Like, we need to, the more people that get on board and understand the higher energetic resonance that they can be in to improve their lives and the lives of the people around them, I think we can heal our world with it.
Yeah. I'm all about that. Absolutely about that, and all about that, and want to be part of that. And that was one of the things that got me out of my funk, was like, hang on a minute, we've got work to do. You know what I mean? You've got work to do. You've been gifted an idea, and even though you've lost everything, the idea and the potential of that idea is not gone. Like, you need to like
and some obviously the crises that are thrown at us. I mean, that's the universe saying, "Hey, you're not doing things properly. Like there's things that you need to know." And I don't mess around with the universe anymore. I just listen, and I do.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Definitely. I don't play around. When I get ideas, I know to act on them, or you know, like in whatever way I can. Some days you're like, what, 3:00 in the morning, and you want me to do, you know, but like at least kind of do something towards it. And every time that I've taken a step forward, really, in with anything that's been gifted to me to actually take on and work with, it's just worked in the most beautiful of ways. You know, that's not to say that it doesn't require some graft and some learning and some disappointment and some stepping out in absolute faith and all of that. But like, it's never, you know, done me wrong. And just this simple podcast has created so much opportunity and got me meeting so many people from around the world and having the most amazing conversations and learning so much as well. And then also the, you know, what I've put together, and as I keep going back to my website to update and clear it and like move it forward, it's like, you know, seeing how far I've come from what I created in the first place, and then also meeting people who get it. That's what then is actually really showing me that it's making sense now. It's like people come to me and say, I get it, I understand it, this is really what I need, I feel it, you know, when you're just like, I can't stop.
And that is such a beautiful thing. Like when you meet people and you immediately connect on that level. It's like, wow, okay, I'm not alone. Or when you're able to inspire somebody that wants to know more, you know, it's just such a great feeling. And I mean, I can hardly get people out of my house when the sound healings are done. They just want to sit and we would talk for hours if we could. You know, I've told my husband, you need to come come through the front door. So people, kind of know that, hey, we've been at this for 3 hours now. Okay, we're good, and I love it. I absolutely love that people are just so stoked about all of the things that we're capable of when we talk about the chakras and the power of the chakras and how you can that's a whole other podcast in itself, but it's like medicine for the soul.
Yeah, beautiful words.
Yeah.
I think that the world is ready for it. People
Yes.
are either consciously or subconsciously are yearning for something else now.
Yes.
It's just getting to the
If you're
point
yearning, listen to the signs, watch for the signs.
Absolutely.
And follow the guidance.
Never do. So where can people connect with you then, Kim, and find out more about what you're doing?
So I have a page, Bliss Natural Wellness. I've got a group that they can join, and that's probably the easiest way. It's Bliss Out with Kim Mallory. And on Instagram, I'm at the original Kim Mallory. And email kim@kimmallory.com.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let me have those links and I can drop them down in the
Sounds good
for everyone to kind of connect with you as well. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your story and coming out the other side and creating, what you're creating and being part of the change that everybody wants, so thank you so much, Kim.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm just so thrilled that I got to meet you in person, sort of. Amazing. Even though we're like a pond apart.
I know, but like we're together somehow already.
Connected. Yeah, I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing your story, and thank you for listening. Once again, I invite you to listen into Higher Energetic Resonance Inspirations podcast, which is the sister podcast to this title. And also there is a mailing list that you can join to actually enhance the journey and the content that you receive there. Links to that are in the show notes. If you want to go deeper on your transformation journey with support and accountability, again, use the link in the show notes to find out more about my one-to-one spiritual life coaching program. Connect with me on my website, carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. Find me on Facebook, Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram, Kazmic, Cazmick. So until the next episode, have a great week. Speak to you soon. Take care.